go. Okay. Today I want to talk about the plight of refugees, both Arab as well as Jewish. This scroll of truth says, Arabs, don't keep your own people in 68 camps for 75 years. Carrie also wonders, why is it exactly that the Arabs have kept their own people in 68 camps for 75 years? There were 900,000 Jewish refugees from the Arab world in the 20th century. Israel accepted 700,000 and gave them full citizenship, while the West, mainly the US and France, absorbed another 200,000, including my aunt from Morocco. In contrast, the Arab world and the United Nations has put 650,000 Arabs, refugees, who fled Israel into camps for 75 years. This is one of the reasons the conflict has endured for so long. The second reason is that some Arab leaders continue to encourage holy war, which is what I spoke about last time. There are 68 refugee camps, and they hold approximately 5 million Palestinians in Jordan, Gaza, the West Bank, Syria, and Lebanon. Jordan has 2 million refugees. The West Bank and Gaza have another 2 million. Syria and Lebanon have 500,000 each. Here are some of the refugee camps. Yarmouk, Syria had 160,000 refugees. It was the largest in Syria. It has been depopulated because of this civil war. Jaramana camp in Syria is probably the densest place on earth. It has 49,000 refugees on 7 acres of land. That compares to Gaza density of 5,500, and Manila is the densest city with 43,000 per kilometer. Khan Yunis in Gaza has 87,000 refugees in half a square kilometer, which is very dense, and this is where some confusion has come from, saying Gaza is the most dense place. Gaza itself is actually not that dense, but certain refugee camps are incredibly dense because the area of the refugee camps hasn't grown, despite the fact that population has grown significantly. Balata is a known refugee camp in the West Bank. It's in an area controlled by the Palestinian Authority, has 27,000 refugees. That camp started out with only 5,000 refugees. And the population now has grown 5.5 times since then. And the area of the refugee camp hasn't grown. And that has disastrous consequences. So, for example, in the 80s and 90s, Balata refugee camp is one of the places where the first Intifada started. And also in 2007, the Palestinian police was on roofs having firefights with Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, who had turned the camp into a military stronghold. And that's what happens when you keep people in camps for a long period of time. Here's a picture of Balata camp. It's an incredibly dense place, but you'll notice that there's plenty of land around the camp. In fact, there's some luxury houses nearby that have lawns and everything, but yet the camp itself is incredibly a dense place, which does not promote peace at all. Who runs these camps? The UN Relief Works Agency, UNRWA. You may have heard of it. They're the largest agency of the UN, and they have 30,000 staff and a budget of 1.6 billion in 2023. Its sole mandate is to assist Palestinian refugees. When this began, they had 750,000 refugees, both Arabs and Jew, by the way. Today, some 5.9 million refugees are eligible for UNRWA services, and I quote their website. Over the years, these camps has transformed from temporary tent cities into hyper-congested masses of multi-story buildings with narrow alleys, with poverty and overcrowding. I'm going to pause here for a second and explain that Israel has nothing to do with these refugee camps. Putting in these people in camps for 75 years was solely the action of the Arab nations and the United Nations. So UNRWA is perpetuating the issue of these camps. Why is that? Because UNRWA has never been given a mandate by the UN General Assembly to resettle refugees. UNRWA's policy states that all Palestinian Arabs who fled Israel in the course of the 1948 war, plus all of their descendants, are to be considered refugees until a just and durable solution could be found by political actors. What's that translate to? What it means is Palestinian refugees will be pawns in purgatory forever until politicians decide what to do. By the way, these are the only refugees in the world that are treated this way, and it's shameful. But don't take my word for it. James Lindsay, former UNRWA General Counsel, said, obviously it represents a political decision on the part of the agency and seems to favor the strain of Palestinian thought espoused by those who are intent on a return to the land that is now Israel, which is not going to happen. John Ging, head of UNRWA, agreed. He agreed it's a political failure, but we don't set up the mandate. We are only the implementers of what the UN tells them to do. Assem Khalil, a Palestinian himself, associate professor of law at Birdside, he's also the dean of the law faculty, has said UNRWA is not currently capable of ensuring necessary protection for Palestinian refugees, and host Arab states cannot use the uniqueness of Palestinian refugeehood to continue upholding discriminatory laws towards Palestinian refugees. What does he mean by this? Let me explain. Arab countries treat their Palestinian refugees as second-class residents and leave their care to the United Nations. In Lebanon, for example, Palestinians don't get citizenship, even though some of them have been there for 3 or 4 generations and were born there. They can't purchase property, they can't go to a Lebanese school, etc. Even in the West Bank, refugees can't vote in municipal elections nor buy property. So the part that you've been hearing about is from Arab countries towards Palestinians. On the other hand, Israel has given citizenship to all the Palestinians who remained, and now they number 2 million Arabs with full citizenship rights, and it's the only Arabs that can vote in the Middle East. Benny Morris has said the war caused the birth of the Palestinian refugee problem, and to the same degree, the Jewish refugee problem. However, the problem of the Jewish refugees was solved, and they were absorbed in Israel and other places, while Arabs never absorbed the refugees, and the problem has been an open sore. Refugees deserve fair treatment. Arab countries put the refugees from Palestine in camps forever in order to use them as political pawns and exert political pressure. This is shameful. And they have said this. Zuhur Mohsin, he was the military head of the PLO, said, "There are no differences between Jordanians, Palestinians, Syrians, and Lebanese. We are only one people. It is for political reasons only that we carefully emphasize our Palestinian identity, for it is in the national interest of the Arabs to encourage the existence of Palestinians against Zionism. Yes, the existence of a separate Palestinian identity is there for tactical reasons." Now let's talk about Jewish refugees. In 1948, because of the war, the New York Times said Jews in grave danger in all Muslim lands, and 900,000 in Africa and Asia face wrath of their foes. This actually turned out to be true, because there are no more Jews that live in the Middle East. In fact, the head of the Muslim Brotherhood said, if the Jewish state becomes a fact, and this is realized by the Arab peoples, they will drive the Jews that live in their midst into the sea. That turned out to be correct. Persecution got worse throughout the Arab world. Iraqi Jews lost their citizenship and had to flee. For generations, Jews in Yemen were persecuted. An article from 1923 says Muslims of Yemen massacring Jews. Israel eventually launched Operation Magic Carpet, and 50,000 Yemeni Jews were saved, Moroccan Jews as well, Egyptian Jews as well. In fact, all the Jews in Arab lands. In Syria, freedom of movement was practically abolished for Jews. Refugees deserve fair treatment. Israel gave citizenship to all Jewish refugees, regardless of where they came from. Now let's talk about world refugees. The UNHCR takes care of world refugees. There are 110 million refugees right now, the most from Syria, Ukraine, and Afghanistan. The US has accepted the most. Arab countries are not even in the top 10. UNHCR helps solve refugee issues. They have a $10 billion budget, and they work to ensure stateless people are granted nationality so they can access basic rights and either return home or build a future in a new country. Excuse me. It's unfortunate that there are refugees anywhere in the world. However, using refugees for political purposes is shameful. For Palestinian refugees, keeping them in temporary camps does nothing but prolong their misery, especially when 2 million are in Gaza and West Bank are already in Palestine, and 2 million in Jordan have citizenship rights. Refugees are a personal issue for me because my father was a refugee in World War II. This is his refugee identity card from France in the 40s. In fact, most of my relatives are refugees, and they live in South Africa, Chile, Holland, France, Luxembourg, the US, and Israel. My father's house was taken in Germany, and the Bickler family still lives there. I've never thought once to go over there and kick down the door. However, according to the UNRWA policy, I'd be considered a refugee, and so would my children, and many people here would also be. That definition helps nobody. Instead, my family and I have moved on with life, thanks to the countries that accepted us when our families were refugees. Israel did the same for Jewish refugees, and that's how it's supposed to be done. The Arabs have used the Palestinians as pawns in their holy war against Israel, and that is a terrible thing that they have done by prolonging their misery for political purposes. Thank you.
Thank you.